Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, everyone. It's your girl Yarrii from Yarrii's Take the Podcast, where I keep everything raw, uncut, and educational. In this podcast, I hope to reach out to people who are ready to wake up and heal from generational trauma. Stick around to learn something new with each and every episode and see the world through my take. If you haven't already, go follow us on Instagram, and you can stream my podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. If you haven't done so already, please do so now. Just like how I said, if you're not ready to wake up and heal from generational trauma, this podcast is not for you, because today we're going to wake up and we're going to talk about what's been going around. If you have a social media account, if you're watching the news, I'm pretty sure that you are aware of all the protests happening worldwide, in America, in the UK, in Turkey, everywhere. There's protests happening everywhere as we speak to stop the genocide. I don't want to call it a conflict because it's not a conflict, it's a genocide. The ethnic cleansing of Palestinian lives. And before I get into what happened on October 7th, because the media started giving it a lot of attention after October 7th, and there is a lot more history attached to Palestine. One podcast episode is probably not enough to get into the entire history of it, but I'm going to try to do a summarized version for those who don't know. And what many people don't know is that the issues between Israel and Palestine did not begin after October 7th of this year. It began in 1948 when David Ben-Gurion declared Israel an independent state meant to be a home for the Jewish people. He stated that this state would ensure political and social rights to all of its citizens without discrimination against anyone. Regardless of their religion, all of the people who lived in Palestine peacefully coexisted when the country was ruled by the Ottoman Empire. After World War I, Britain gained control of Palestine, and this is when the heavy tension between the Arabs and the Jews began. They proposed a partition plan to split the region into two states, Jewish Israel and Arab Palestine, while maintaining Jerusalem an international zone under UN supervision. Several Jews who had fled to Palestine after the Holocaust attempted to find a new country to call home. The mass departure of Palestinians increased because of the Jewish immigration. More than 750,000 Palestinians have been forcibly removed from their homes by Israeli settlers during the al-Nakba, and the al-Nakba is known as the catastrophe. Only Jewish Israeli settlers live in the colonies that Israelis have built using their property. Due to restrictions, Palestinians were forced to leave their homes that they lived in centuries for, and they had to relocate to neighboring nations such as Jordan, Syria, the West Bank, and Gaza. For more than 50 years, Israel has consistently violated the human rights of the Palestinian people. Just recently, as last Ramadan, they would harass Muslims who gathered at the Al-Aqsa Mosque to pray and break their fast, claiming that the Palestinians were rioting. They would raid the mosque, and the militant group known as Hamas was founded after years and years of colonization, discrimination, and harassment by Israel in an attempt to defend the Palestinians. As everyone knows, on October 7th, 2023, Hamas executed an assault that resulted in the deaths of over 1,300 Israelis. And after this, Israel has been enforcing a total blockade on the Gaza Strip, depriving its people of gasoline, electricity, water, and food. They have been ordering residents to flee to avoid getting caught in a crossfire. But after the residents fled, they immediately attacked the civilians who were simply following their orders. While many media outlets and news sources are concerned that society should be condemning Hamas for what they did, how about calling out Israel in their actions? They have been bombing homes, hospitals, an Orthodox Christian church, mosques, and any other place where people are seeking sanctuary to avoid being bombed into rubble. There is an activist and a journalist who's an advocate for the oppressed people. His name is Sean King. If you follow him on Instagram, or if you don't, please go and follow him. He's been posting everything regarding what's been happening in Palestine and Israel. There's a lot of graphic videos that a lot of people can't bear to watch or even bear to think about it. But what's crazy is we can't sit. We're scrolling on our phones, and a lot of people have been staying off social media to avoid seeing the war that's happening in Palestine. The things that we can't even bear to look at, those people are living through it at the moment. They're going through what we can't even bear to imagine. They're living under conditions that are unlivable. And I saw a post on Instagram, and it's the perfect example, because Israel's defense to their actions is that they're trying to locate Hamas and basically get their lick back on Hamas. But this is the perfect example and a metaphor that I saw. If there is a school shooter hiding inside of a classroom, right? To locate the school shooter, are you going to bomb the entire school full of children and teachers and staff? How does that make sense? You're bombing hospitals, you're bombing homes, you're bombing an Orthodox church where people are seeking shelter. It's not even a religion issue anymore. They don't care who they're killing. There are Israeli hostages that Hamas has taken hostage, and Israel claims to say that they will end everything once Hamas gives up their hostages. If you're bombing everything in sight, how are you taking the risk of bombing the hostages as well? You don't care about the hostages. That's my opinion. That's not the fact, but that's my opinion. Because, I want to separate the facts and the opinions, because at the end of the day, this is my take. But I also want you to form your own opinion by giving you the facts and the resources so you know on what side of the right side of history to stand on. It's as simple as doing a Google research. It's as simple as going on social media and following the right pages, because there's a lot of fabricated truths where they're making Palestinians seem like they're terrorists, like they're the oppressor. How is a country who doesn't even, a community of people, they don't have a country, they don't have a state, they don't have a government to defend them. Hamas is a militant group that formed on its own to, in an attempt to defend the Palestinians, because nobody else is doing it. And I'm not saying what Hamas did was right. I don't condone any violence on any side. At the end of the day, violence on the Israelis, violence on the Palestinians should not be happening. Muslims and Jews and Christians used to live in peace in Palestine during the Ottoman Empire. Why is it so hard to retain that back? What is the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians to the point where the Israelis just can't let the Palestinians live in their country? Because once they leave, they can't come back. Imagine growing up in a country where you were born there, your mom was born there, your mom's mom, centuries of generations of generations lived there, and that's all you know. And then one day, somebody comes knocking at your door, showing you some type of paper saying, I own this land, and you have to leave now. What do you do when you're in that state? Where do you go? If you leave the country, you can't come back. I don't know if you guys know that, but Palestinians who leave Palestine, known as Israel now, they are not allowed back into the country, and that's what they want. They want to remove and relocate every single Palestinian, and they're trying to make Israel a home country for the Jews, which I don't see any problem with the Jews living in Palestine. That's how it happened. Palestine opened their doors to the Holocaust survivors during the time of Hitler, and they did that. Why can't you open your arms to these people? It's not even, I'm not telling you to open your arms to Hamas, but you can open your arms to the mothers, the children's. You got to understand, Gaza's population is about 2 million people, and half of them are under the age of 18. So your enemies are majority children. You're scared of children. They don't have anything to fight back with. Now let's get into America and how America plays a part in this. America is by far Israel's greatest ally. They have been providing them with $3.8 billion in military and economic aid yearly. President Biden has requested for an additional $14.3 billion to be sent over to Israel as a part of an aid package. Aid for what? What do they need? They have the weapons. They have the government. They have the people in the army to provide as soldiers. But the Palestinian people don't even have a government. They're not even a recognized state or a country. What are you providing them aid for? We have countless homeless people. We have countless people who don't have health insurance. We have so many students who are under student loans. And I remember President Joe Biden saying that he was going to provide student loan debt relief. I'm a student who's under student loans. I'm still on the wait list on whether or not the student debt relief is going to be approved or not. Why do we have the money to fund a war against a community who doesn't even have the power to fight back, when there's so many Americans who need that money, who could benefit from that money? These are your tax dollars. It's not just tax dollars as well. I'm gonna get into the boycotts, because boycotts do work, and a lot of people think that they don't work, but they do. There are many companies that support and fund Israel as well. And just off the top of my head, I can count Starbucks, number one, McDonald's, Pepsi, Coca-Cola. That's the four that I got off the top of my head. But you have to be mindful of where your money is going to. Your one Starbucks drink is a bullet for a Palestinian life. You have to think about these things, because as Americans, we live in such a dome. I say this all the time. We don't care about what's happening outside of our borders, and we need to start caring, because I remember when I first learned about the Holocaust, and I think middle school, I want to say, that's when you learn about history. I thought to myself, not just the Holocaust, but slavery in general and everything that was a catastrophe. How did society allow this to happen? And as a teenager, I used to be grateful to Allah that we live in a world where this isn't possible anymore, where people are woke and people care enough to fight back for our rights. But I was so wrong. I was so wrong. I know you've seen the protests that are happening worldwide, like I mentioned earlier. Recently, past Saturday on November 4th, I attended one of America's largest protests known in history today, the Palestinian protest in Washington, D.C. And I did some interviews, which I will be uploading once this episode uploads. But it's just so heavy on the heart knowing that not only are the lives over there being affected, but also there are so many Palestinian lives over here being affected as well. Palestinians who have family back there. Even if you don't have family, if you're just a human, seeing a baby with no head, its head is just blown off. What was the baby's fault? He didn't even hit when as a Muslim, for me, it's hard seeing other Muslim communities, because it's not just Palestine. It's so many Muslim communities in the Middle East that are going through so many things and nobody ever talks about it. But this specifically, it's a genocide. A lot of people wonder how we allowed the Holocaust to happen. We're literally repeating history. I thought the point of history class and history books was to learn our history and not to repeat the mistakes. And as the new generation, as the upcoming generation, we need to be woke, and we need to understand where our money is going to, who we're voting for, and what the people we're voting for are doing. When people voted for President Joe Biden, they didn't sign up for a war. They didn't vote for him to go fund a whole war on the other side of the world with our American tax dollars. And I know a lot of Americans probably have something to say about it, because people love their money. Why are we not putting back into the American people? Or even if you want to use it on people outside of the country, why not put it into the people who are oppressed instead of helping the oppressor? I don't know how, as a human with a conscience, anybody can just sit back and not do anything. And a lot of people may think, what is me attending a protest? What is one more person attending a protest going to do? What is that going to change? What is one more post going to change? There's so many ways you can help. The people who attended the protest in DC, thank you for attending, because now we broke a record in American history where it was the largest protest in American history to grab attention. And it's sad because I did not see CNN, I did not see BBC News covering it. I saw so many other social media outlets post it, but the major news sources, they're not covering it. Why? Why is the major news sources not covering what's actually happening, what's actually important? You making that post about sharing information about Palestine is you educating one other person. If you have 100 followers, if 50 followers knew about what's happening and the 50 who didn't, you're educating 50 more people who didn't know what's happening. You're educating them, and now they know. You can also call your governors, your senators, the people who represent your state. You should be blowing up their emails. You should be blowing up their phones, demanding a ceasefire. The Palestinian people, they are in desperate need of a ceasefire. Majority of the hospitals are being bombed. Majority of the houses are being bombed. They don't have anywhere to treat people. They're treating people on hospital floors. They're treating people to a bed, and they're cramped. Do you know how unsanitary that is? I know for the medical folks, you know how bad that is in a hospital setting. They don't even have, I saw a video where one of the doctors was resorting to using vinegar as some type of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Antibacterial, because they're running out of supplies. They're not allowing medical aid or even just any type of care aid coming through the borders. I saw videos where the ambulances, the medical aid people coming in trucks were bombed just because they're coming to send an aid. That's breaking so many international crimes where what is your purpose? What is the point of doing this? And how are you not speaking up about it? And as citizens of America, we have the power to speak up. We have the right. It's in our rights as citizens. You have the right to peacefully protest. You have the right to demand a ceasefire. You have the right to share your opinion and tell your senators, your governors, whoever's in control of your state and represents your state, your community, to let them know what your perspective is on this one, what you want out of this. Because you pay the government, you fund the government, you're funding Israel. We all, as a collective, as American citizens, are funding Israel. It's sad. It's really heartbreaking. Whether you're Muslim or not, aside from the political stuff that you could be doing, going to protests, demanding a ceasefire, and just constantly spreading awareness, if you believe in God, any God, I don't care if you're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, whatever, even if you're an atheist, whatever higher power you believe in, especially as Muslims, we believe in Allah, and we know that our strongest weapon towards anything is our prayers, our faith in Allah. And I pray every day, and I hope you guys are praying every day, because your prayers, they need your prayers more than anything. Those people over there, they need to know that they have allies over here, even if America isn't their ally. I just by the protests alone, I saw so many people, not just Muslim people. I interviewed a Jewish couple who was part of the LGBTQ community. I interviewed a Israeli old couple who is familiar with what's happening in the Middle East, because they used to live there, and they're protesting against it because they do not support it. So many Orthodox Jews came to the protest showing their support for Palestine. So many Americans, so many minorities, everybody that showed up who wasn't Muslim. I just want to, personally thank you for caring about the Muslim community, because a lot of people don't, and we're portrayed as the enemy in the media, and we need to start changing that. And that change starts with you, and you control your social media outlet, and your followers, they don't have to believe in what you post, but now they have that perspective, they have that thought in the back of their mind. And we just need to keep doing our part and playing our role, because we have to be on the right side of history. We're going to be learning about this a decade from now in history books, and the kids then learning about it are going to wonder how this generation, especially with all the resources and all the technological advancements and evolving we had over the years, they're going to wonder, how did we ever let this happen? Like, how did this even happen? Who was okay with this? And we need to be able to make sure that this is not something that ends up in a catastrophe again. It has been 30 days today. It'll probably be more once this podcast is uploaded, but it has been 30 days today since the bombings have started after October 7th. And there's so many lives that have been lost. There are so many kids that were martyrs, so many mothers, fathers, so many journalists just trying to spread the word. There are so many journalists and activists putting their lives on the line just to show the media what the CNN and Fox and BBC won't cover. I applaud the people who are risking their lives just so we can see the truth. I recently saw a post where a man in Palestine said, I don't know if you non-Muslims wouldn't know, but Muslims, we pray janazah salah, where we pray for the dead, and there's a funeral prayer. And he said, we don't want your funeral prayers because we are alive and it is you who are dead. And I just want I want to emphasize that, because with everything that's been going on, a lot of people have become dead and numb to just normalizing war on the other side of the world. Just because it's not happening in our borderlines, a lot of people do not have empathy for those going through it. Before Palestine even gets a chance to be free, without even realizing it, they are freeing us. With everything that they've been going through, if you look at their videos, they're still saying, Alhamdulillah, thanks be to Allah. With everything that's going on, they're not rebelling out and screaming in vain, asking, Ya Allah, why am I going through this? Ya Allah, why are you putting me through this? They're thanking Allah with everything that's going on. They're saying, praise be to Allah with everything that's happening. They're praying all together. They're sitting in a room. I saw a woman who was being interviewed saying that the women are sleeping in their prayer outfits just in case their house gets bombed. They don't want to be exposed to the men outside in their PJs or their sleep garment, and they're all sleeping in the same room. The whole family is sleeping in a living room. Just in case they do die, they all die together. They wait until a bomb drops, and while they're waiting, they're reading Quran consistently. They're praying to Allah. They're praying for all of this to stop happening. And us Muslims in the West, we struggle to pray 5 times a day. We struggle to attend Jummah prayers. We struggle to pick up the Quran and read one line from it. And they're having bombs flying over their heads. They don't have clean water. They don't have access to aid or medical units. And they're still praying every single day. And I just want that to stick with you, because this is a wake-up call to everybody around the world, not just Muslims. But if you have taken anything for granted, make sure you appreciate it right now. If you have somebody you haven't forgiven and were holding a grudge against, go forgive them. You don't know how temporary life is, and you don't know if you will ever get a chance to forgive them. If you have been disconnected with your faith and your Lord, right now is your time to go reach out to your Creator and connect with Him again, and pray to Him for yourself, for the people in Palestine, for everybody suffering around the world. This needs to be a wake-up call on everybody. If you don't know how to support Palestine, I will be providing resources in the links. I will be providing 2 trustworthy sources where you can provide money to. And I will be providing you with Instagram accounts that are consistently posting daily posts about what's happening in Palestine and updating people about the truth. Because like I said before, the news and media outlets are not doing their job. And it is on us to educate ourselves on figuring out who the oppressor is and who the oppressed is, and to not be on the wrong side of history. If you haven't before, please go follow us on Instagram. You can stream this podcast on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. I hope you learned something from this, and until the next episode.